Have you ever wondered how the Israel-Palestine conflict began? It's a question that takes us on a journey through the pages of history, back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries. It was during this period that Jewish immigrants from Europe, fleeing persecution and seeking a homeland, began to settle in Palestine. At that time, Palestine was tucked under the wing of the Ottoman Empire, only to later become a mandate under British control after the Ottoman Empire's downfall following the First World War. The arrival of these Jewish immigrants did not occur in a vacuum. Palestine was already home to an Arab majority who had their own distinct culture, identity, and national aspirations. The land they inhabited was not just a geographical entity but a symbol of their historical legacy and future hopes. Similarly, for the Jewish immigrants, this was not merely a refuge but the promised land, a place deeply intertwined with their own historical and spiritual narratives. These dual narratives, as you can imagine, set the stage for a clash of national aspirations. The Jews, motivated by the dream of establishing a Jewish state, and the Palestinians, driven by the desire to protect their homeland, found themselves on a collision course. The tensions between these two groups, each with their own legitimate aspirations and deep emotional ties to the same land, began to simmer and occasionally erupt into conflicts. As the 20th century rolled on, these simmering tensions were further stoked by political developments, including the Balfour Declaration of 1917, in which Britain expressed support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. This was seen by Palestinians as a betrayal, and by Jewish immigrants as a validation of their own national aspirations. And so, the stage was set for a conflict that would span generations, a conflict rooted in competing national aspirations and identities, historical grievances, and territorial claims. The seeds of the conflict were sown deep into the soil of this land, a land that both Jews and Palestinians called home. So the seeds of the conflict were sown with the competing national aspirations of Jews and Palestinians. What makes this piece of land so contentious? Well, let's delve into that. The heart of the Israel-Palestine conflict lies in the territorial dispute over the land known as Israel and the Palestinian territories of the West Bank and Gaza Strip. Both Israelis and Palestinians have deep-seated historical and cultural ties to this region, making their claims to the territory not only a matter of sovereignty, but also of heritage and identity. The Jewish connection to the land goes back thousands of years, tracing their lineage to biblical times when this region was the Jewish kingdom of Israel. The Palestinians, primarily of Arab descent, also have a long-standing connection to this land, having lived there for centuries. Their roots are intertwined with the rich tapestry of cultures that have inhabited this region, from the Canaanites and Philistines of ancient times to the Arabs of the more recent past. Now, let's add another layer to this conflict: religion. The region holds immense religious significance for Jews, Muslims, and Christians alike. Jerusalem in particular is a spiritual epicenter for all three major monotheistic religions. For Jews, it's the site of their ancient temple and the Western Wall, their holiest place of prayer. For Muslims, it's where the Al-Aqsa Mosque and Dome of the Rock stand, marking the spot where they believe Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven. For Christians, it's where Jesus Christ was crucified and resurrected, making the Church of the Holy Sepulchre a key pilgrimage site. Each group's spiritual connection to Jerusalem adds a religious dimension that intensifies the territorial dispute. The Holy City's status has been a flashpoint in the conflict, with both Israelis and Palestinians viewing it as their rightful capital. Thus, the combination of territorial disputes and religious significance adds multiple layers to the conflict. It's not just about land, it's about history, identity, and faith. These facets intertwine, creating a complex web that makes the Israel-Palestine conflict one of the most intricate and enduring issues of our time. How have nationalism, the refugee issue, and international factors influenced the conflict? Let's dive right into it. Nationalism, a powerful force worldwide, plays a pivotal role in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Both Israelis and Palestinians have developed strong national identities and aspirations driven by their shared history, culture, and connection to the land. Israelis seek to maintain a Jewish state, a homeland where Jewish identity, culture, and religion can thrive. On the other hand, Palestinians seek self-determination and statehood, a nation where their identity and rights are recognized and preserved. Now let's talk about the refugee issue. The conflict has resulted in a significant Palestinian refugee population displaced by wars and territorial disputes. The right of return for these refugees is a contentious topic that continues to fuel the conflict. Palestinians argue for their right to return to their ancestral homes, while Israelis express concerns about the demographic and security implications of such a move. Finally, we must consider the international factors. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has never been just a regional issue. It has always been influenced by the international community, particularly by the involvement of global powers such as the United States. These powers have shaped the conflict's dynamics through diplomatic efforts, peace initiatives, and international agreements. However, their interventions have had mixed success, often influenced by their own strategic interests in the region. For instance, the United States' support for Israel is well documented, impacting everything from diplomatic negotiations to military aid. Other countries too have had their roles, whether through support for the Palestinian cause, mediation efforts, or providing aid to refugees. This international involvement, while sometimes helpful, often adds another layer of complexity to the conflict. In summary, the strong national identities and aspirations of Israelis and Palestinians, the significant Palestinian refugee population, and their contested right of return, and the involvement of various regional and global powers, have all profoundly influenced the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. These factors have further complicated the conflict, making it a global issue. What role do security concerns and settlements play in this conflict? This probing question leads us to the crux of the Israel-Palestine conflict, where issues of security and settlements take center stage. Israel has long grappled with security concerns, facing threats such as terrorist attacks and rocket fire, particularly from the Gaza Strip. To mitigate these threats, Israel has taken measures that are often contentious, like the construction of security barriers and execution of military operations. These actions, while aimed at ensuring the safety of Israeli citizens, have been met with international criticism and are seen by many Palestinians as oppressive. The security situation is further complicated by the geographic proximity of the two populations. This close proximity often leads to a cycle of violence and retaliation, where attacks escalate tensions and higher tensions lead to more attacks. This cyclical pattern makes achieving lasting peace a daunting task. On the other side of the coin are the Israeli settlements in the West Bank. These settlements are communities of Israelis that have been established in territories captured by Israel during the Six-Day War of 1967. While Israel views these settlements as a legitimate exercise of its rights, Palestinians, along with much of the international community, see them as illegal under international law. More than just a legal issue, the settlements are seen by Palestinians as a significant obstacle to a future Palestinian state. They argue that the expansion of these settlements into the West Bank is steadily eroding the viability of a contiguous Palestinian state. This perspective views the settlements as a clear symbol of Israeli occupation, and their continued growth as a signal of Israel's unwillingness to make the necessary concessions for peace. In essence, the twin issues of security concerns and settlements have created a volatile mix, each exacerbating the other, leading to a cycle of escalation that is difficult to break. These issues illuminate the complex and intertwined nature of the Israel-Palestine conflict, demonstrating that any lasting solution will require addressing both in a comprehensive and balanced manner. Security concerns and settlements have added fuel to the fire, exacerbating tensions between the two sides. Why is it so difficult to find a resolution to this conflict? To understand this, we must delve into the deep-seated mistrust that exists between Israelis and Palestinians. Mistrust, like a shadow, has been cast over the decades of negotiations and attempted compromises, often rendering them fruitless. It's not simply about the ink on a treaty or the handshake between leaders. It's about the hearts and minds of the people who have lived through this conflict, generation after generation. The wounds of past atrocities and broken promises run deep, making it challenging to build trust. Now let's shift our focus to some of the core unresolved issues that add to this complexity. These aren't just points on a negotiation table, they are real, tangible matters that affect the lives of millions of people. Firstly, the issue of borders. The lines that delineate where one nation ends and another begins is a major sticking point. Both sides have their interpretations, rooted in history, culture, and national aspirations. Next, we come to the status of Jerusalem. A city of immense religious significance to Jews, Muslims, and Christians alike, it is more than just a piece of land. It's a symbol, a beacon of faith, and its future is a contentious issue. Then there's the fate of refugees. The conflict has created a significant Palestinian refugee population. The question of their right of return, of whether they can go back to the homes they were forced to leave, is a hotly debated topic. Lastly, the overall structure of a future Palestinian state. What would it look like? How would it function? What would be its relationship with Israel? These are questions that remain unanswered. With so many unresolved issues and a deep-seated lack of trust, it's clear why finding a comprehensive resolution to the Israel-Palestine conflict has remained elusive. But remember, understanding these complexities is the first step towards fostering a dialogue that might one day lead to peace. So, what have we learned from this overview of the Israel-Palestine conflict? The historical roots, territorial disputes, religious significance, nationalism, refugee issues, political factors, security concerns, settlements, lack of trust, and unresolved issues all intertwine, making this a complex, multidimensional conflict. It's a deeply entrenched issue, challenging to untangle and resolve. While a resolution remains elusive, understanding the intricacies of the conflict can help us engage in more informed and nuanced discussions about it.